Would you look at that? The podcast is back. Yeah, it is back. It's back with a new coat of paint. It's back with a new name. No longer are we the Filsinger Games fan podcast. We are still very much Filsinger Games fans here at the podcast, but it is now the Solo Promoter podcast to sort of tie in with the YouTube channel and keep everything organized. So welcome to the first episode of the Solo Promoter podcast. Although this is episode number 82 of the podcast because we're just absorbing that history and moving forward. So today's audio is going to be from an interview I conducted with Tom Filsinger, the creator of Filsinger Games, about Origins 2139. Now, we're going to be talking about a lot of artwork on this. If you want to see the visuals, you'll want to head on over to the YouTube channel to watch the video version of this interview. Otherwise, if you want to listen in the car, you want to check this out as you're driving along or going on a walk or whatever it is that you're doing, here is the audio of that interview. And I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you stay tuned for even more of the Solo Promoter podcast. Well, it is my absolute pleasure to welcome back the one, the only, the creator of Filsinger Games and the writer of Champions of the Galaxy Origins 2139, Tom Filsinger. Welcome back.
It is a pleasure to be here yet again for this great annual tradition.
I love it. I'm very excited to do this every year, and I was very happy you reached out. And it's funny because usually we do these right after the set has come out, and now it's been out for a while, so we can. And I know you've played through a lot of it, a lot of your year, so I'm really looking forward to a great discussion here today. And now, also, I will tell everybody that Tom, you sent along some great concept art and early concept art, so we're going to get to that as well, and I'm very excited to chat with you. I want to start in the big way, which to me was a really interesting storyline, is you revealed a lot of stuff about the Aetherans and the gladiators, and then it was interesting because most of them went away for part of the year. So, you revealed that the Aetherans have sort of this hive mind and they're all connected. Can you talk a little bit about how you came up with that and, how that popped into your mind to write?
Yeah, thanks, Grant. The Origin series, when if you go back to it, it was 4 game editions. There was a lot of back history throughout those sets. And I knew it was leading up to the Aetherans story. To me, that was, I even remember where I was. I was taking a walk one day with pen and paper because I knew that I might have some interesting thoughts because, I was thinking about stories. And that's when it came to me. And there needs to be a reason, or it doesn't need to be, but I thought there should be a reason why Aetherans are so single-minded. I mean, most cultures don't do that. They eventually progress and evolve, and they don't. And of course, that makes for a good story. It's like the Daleks and Doctor Who. They just always want to take over the universe. They're incapable of thinking about much of anything else, apparently, but they're machines. These are people. So then it came to me that they're a result of a genetic failure or genetic sabotage. That's also still an open issue, I suppose you could look at it that way. But and that would explain why they can't seem to escape, and also that their minds are interconnected like bees in a hive or other animals that swarm together. They almost can't break out of that mold. Look how hard it was for Havoc to get away, and anybody to get away. So so that was planned from the beginning, and this now. I've got to wait 4 years for my ideas to actually come out. It requires quite a bit of patience, this approach. But leading up to it is always fun, and I hope people enjoyed that, and I hope it helps people to understand why Aetherans are the way they are. And I really enjoyed that they had a choice to stop being that way and said, forget it. Why would we want to go back to being weaklings again? Peace-loving weaklings. And so they decided that that was not in their future.
Yeah, it's all when you're, I just know that when people talk about writing and teach writing, it's like if you give a character a singular focus, it's easy to write that, you know what I mean? If they're so bent on domination, it's easy to write that character because you know what they want.
Right, right, right. And, I think that there does come a time where like, for example, we see in our society and in the world, that we tend to move towards progressivism and equality. And that's just simply not still allowed in the gladiators. They are just an alpha male run society with no apologies whatsoever. Like, so it's not really real life. And yet it does make for, I mean, if villains are going to be villains, they have to act like it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Apex stayed, and he got a special foil card. Can you talk about how you decided to do a foil card, and will we see any other? Like, is there a hologram card coming, or will there be other things like that in the future?
Yeah, it could be. You never know. I established a new trend a couple of years ago when I released a whole bunch of stuff when the Athrans attacked Castellix. Really got a kick out of all that because there was a lot in that. You remember that. Then last year, we released, what was it again?
There was like the ticket stub.
Right.
To the, yeah.
And so, and I enjoyed that too. So now I'm like, okay, what do we do this year? And we did two things actually. We'll get to the other one later with the black and white Kraken card. But also here, I've always wondered, other card games do foil, and let's experiment. Let's see if we can do that. And then once that I was discussing it with Mike and we decided to do it, the question is who? And I thought this is perfect because Apex is actually a big story this year because he went and joined the new Vibe, which was quite a big deal. So this is good. This will make him a star. In other words, it makes it special. But Diva actually referred to it. I mean, I always like those little things. She referred to a game that has a hologram card, and we're the game. I like doing stuff like that.
Yeah, so Champions of the Galaxy now exists in the Champions of the Galaxy universe.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a very interesting storyline because to have him join sort of this new Vibe entertainment, kind of focused stable, like what's going to happen in the future, what's going to happen in 2140 if gladiators come back or whatever, are they going to be like, what are you doing? Or are they going to be like, okay, that's great.
That was another thing I was glad to leave open, by the way, that anybody could do whatever they wanted. For me, my 2139 started and it's good, but I know that somewhere, whenever I decide, Siege and Fist are going to return. And then what? How do you do that? I think every promoter had their own choice for how to handle that. And I enjoyed that open-ended creativity that I hope other people enjoyed too.
Yeah, I because he was aligned with Diva, I gave him like tons of title shots, and unfortunately he lost all of them. So I just had Diva become disgusted. Like she's like, I invested all this much in you, and now you're just failing me. Go away.
Oh, that's hilarious.
He's kind of gone away at my Fed. I mean, I'm still playing, so who knows what's going to happen? But
well, I got
really
lucky.
Interesting.
I got lucky. He got the belt and held it, and that was just perfect for my Fed. Yeah. Isn't that funny how that turns out different? You got to work with it.
It is, yeah. It's the dice. The dice add that mystery in there.
Yeah.
Well, Kenji got an update in this edition as well. Can you talk a little bit about Kenji and his progress?
Well, once I figured out that I was going to bring Kraken back, but I didn't want Kraken to be a monster that I thought realistically he wouldn't be, then you have to ask yourself who's he going to feud with then. And I thought it was nice to explore a little bit about Kenji. Take the mask off him, let him be a real human being, and put him into what is otherwise, a main event feud, really. Even if they only maybe have mid card or a little bit higher stats. To me, that's what the GWF was always about. Going back to the early days, that the whole roster should matter, and that you can put Kenji into a main event match, and it should matter if you build it up properly. And that's what I was going for with this edition. Was a lot of people, and it happened in my own promotion, that a lot of people that normally wouldn't get much of a push were just sort of automatically pushed because uh, I don't know how to put it. I just wanted that to happen, and I hope it did happen. And Kenji was one of the guys.
Yeah, well, super fun. I was talking on to some of the other game fans, and we were talking about distractor ratings, or not. Sorry, disqualification ratings. And Kenji has a 4 rate, pretty low disqualification. And then I was just kind of thinking, like, wait, does that mean he can cheat and he's better at not getting caught? You know what I mean? Because it's a low number, and
No,
I know he's a Titan and he would never cheat, but it was just an
oh no, I
interesting
wouldn't
thing.
put it that way. I mean, some Titans do. No, no, no. Him, and Azuma have very strong codes of conduct.
Yeah.
So no, he wouldn't cheat. Would be the reason. Now, somebody else, look at in professional wrestling, the Sheik. That guy should have been disqualified every meet.
Right.
So he probably should have a DQ rating of like 3 or 4 because he'd throw fire and wouldn't even get disqualified. So that's the kind of person you're referring to.
Right. 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 Well, as we move on here to our next one, here is Musk. If I'm saying that right, am I saying that right?
Oh,
Musk? Or do you?
well, I'll just say how I say it. I say
Yes.
Musk, but
Musk. Okay.
Musk is, yeah,
Kraken. How are we going to do
right.
this? So anyway, and this is the first piece we're going to get to that you sent along an early sketch of, or a black and white sketch of this. So, of course, he was Death Knight and he was the Loyalist. Can you talk a little bit about his evolution to where he is now?
Yeah, I didn't want us to forget his real history because I thought it makes a better story. Instead of him taking on these other guys, is let's just have him go back to who he really actually is and how he would really feel having been in those forbidden jungles and a lot of the conflicts he's feeling. For example, joining on a same team with Grandmaster now. Uh, I just wanted to explore his personality more. And in terms of the drawing, I wanted a little bit more closer to the way he was portrayed originally. I thought this was slimming him down a bit too much. So anyway, some changes were made, but yeah,
Yeah, he's a little bulkier there, and
yeah. Well, that's the way he was portrayed. If the way I remember it, in one of the original drawings, I wanted to make sure to not deviate from that portrayal too much. That's all.
so next up we have Purge, and from just joining Castellex and the Vizier. So talk about a little bit about her, and she's a pretty tough character.
Well, I really was glad to see the Castellix group get more identity. Starting with us adding Vizier, or however anybody pronounces that, Vizier. Um, and then I thought, in order to compete with the other top teams there, the Gladiators and the Liberators, they're the only ones without a female representative. So it was time to bring this character in.
And when you were talking about sort of mid card people getting an elevation, even before the set came out, this is one person who I was thinking, like, yeah, he should probably get an upgrade because he was not doing well in my Fed. And so this is a pretty solid update for Burning Man.
And it puts him again at the heart of a key feud. Well, first off, I mean, he'll always be remembered as now one of the new Society of Death. And I think that's a really cool thing for him to not just be lost in the shuffle. It's a character a lot of people like. And I got a lot of use out of him too as a result of this feud with Kenji and Azuma. Gave him a new power too. Hopefully this character will get the attention he deserves.
Yeah. He's doing, I mean, as I said, I'm only about 10 or so cards into my Fed this year, but he's doing really well. And then, of course, we mentioned him before. Kraken, he makes his big return. And I was going to ask you this later, but I can ask you this now. When you're looking at bringing back a character, do you kind of like look back and go, oh, I would love to tell a little bit more of this person's story? Or is it just like, I need someone to fill this role, this person would do that?
Um, I don't remember how it came to me to bring Kraken back, but when the idea crossed my mind, I really liked it. I wanted to do a vision almost like a post-apocalyptic Kraken. Different look. He's got the hair, the sideburns. I had to come up with a story that would allow him to decades later still be fairly competitive. Um, I could always use the out that these people are aliens. I prefer not to take the simple way out just because it strains credibility. I think if you use, it's kind of like in comic books. If you kill people off and we know they're not really dead, at some point nobody believes it anymore. And so I don't want to get to that point where uh, I just do things just to do them. So I tried to give a story for why Kraken is still around. I think he's a compelling character, and yet he's always been a two-bit dictator. He's never been the top guy, and I think that was perfect then to align in right back in with the Titans feud.
Yeah. Well, I know a lot of people were excited about him coming back, and we'll get to the black and white card here just in a second. But the third member of the Society of Death is Nakano Takeko, if I'm saying that one correctly. And this is somebody who we had seen art for this, I think, at one of the Galacticons or something, or one of the virtual online events in a little bit of a different style. So can you talk about this character and bringing her here into Champions of the Galaxy?
When I knew I wanted to bring back the Society of Death, I thought, let's see if we can't figure out a female that might fit in. And I looked up historical figures because I remember, the original Kraken brought back Genghis Khan. When I, did my research and found this person, I thought, man, this is just great. I really think this is a great person, a great character. And it fits the theme of the Society of Death, just like the old days, without making them a superstar team, because I didn't want to do that. Just wanted them to be interesting. Well, for me, by the way, we just did Kraken. Kraken, one on my last card before my break, won my interplanetary belt. Well, that's like a big thing. I can't wait to start up again to see if he can defend it now, because he didn't used to win belts for me in the old days.
Yeah.
So, this is like a big step for him. But anyway, just a cool historical figure here.
Yeah.
And I thought
Excellent.
she fit in.
So here is this amazing art you sent with all three of them, Burning Man, Kraken, and Takeko, Nakano Takeko, all together. And this. What was the decision to do a black and white card of Kraken to release as an exclusive?
All right, wait. There's two questions there. Can I get to the Kraken or individual card? I want to talk about this art here first.
Absolutely, yes, please.
Daryl knew that this was going to be a threesome and that I was going to put a background on all of them that was similar. So I needed to get the poses. And Kraken changed a little, as you see here. The facial hair isn't there yet. And Nakano had to make sure we tried to get the sizes correct. Now, you can assume she might be standing a little bit even more ahead of Kraken, because in real life she was very, very small. I don't even know if she was 5 foot, somewhere around there. So but we were trying to get the whole pattern there first. So now I can go on to your second question if you want me to now.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah. This came from Todd and Mike. I can't remember how and why, or maybe me. I just don't remember. Because we did it, for Wolf, for the best of. We did an actual throwback facsimile of the original Wolf card for that. You know what I mean, right? You remember
Yes,
that.
yes.
And I think it just came up that it would be cool to do it for another character that's kind of a throwback character. And so we all agreed it was a good idea. And I think our fan base, what my understanding is, a lot of our promoter fans enjoyed that.
Yes,
Is that fair to say, do you think?
absolutely. There is actually there's actually a lot of discussion about this new early classic set that I'm going to ask you about here in a little bit. That gets a black and white release, all of them, because people loved that Kraken card so much.
Oh, good to hear. Good to hear. Yeah, I like that kind of stuff too. So we'll see. We can talk about some of the upcoming stuff at the end.
So up next we have Tank's new persona, Freedom Fighter, and him and Climber kind of went their separate ways and broke up a really great tag team. But can you talk a little bit about Tank's new persona, or it's not really new, it's like sort of an adjustment of his persona, and what happened with FDF Tradition?
And okay, that was one of those tag teams that I wasn't feeling. I tried to update them a couple of years ago, and I just wasn't feeling it, to put it in those terms. So I thought, okay, if we can break these guys up, that's always a story too, if you can do it the right way. Now, I'm really happy with the way that turned out, by the way, because I really like what Showstopper brings to the new vibe. And we'll get to them, so I'll wait. So that was a whole new direction for that character. This one, like you said, we're just sort of focusing a little bit more on the image he already started to have, and then he has to find his new place in a promotion where he's totally displaced in a lot of ways, and he found it. He found a new home with Shane, at least for the time being. And so it was this idea that we've always had in the game, this sort of fighting American type guy. All right, so there he is.
Yeah, and we have some alternate art here as well that you sent along.
Yeah. Don't know what to say really about that. I mean, it was the right idea already. It was just a matter of fine tuning the drawing. We decided to go shirtless, I think, instead of having a costume. It was a little bit more raw, a little bit, this is just a down to earth, gritty guy. And we wanted that to come through in the drawing. No nonsense guy. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, that's it. I just thrown it.
Well,
I've
another
always wanted to bring this guy back.
Yeah, Nosfera returned, and you sent along some fun stuff here because we're actually going to kind of see the process of how this pose came to be. But what was the thinking of bringing him back? Is he someone you just always thought, oh, he'll definitely be making a return?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just like this character. I just love the way it dovetails with that whole urban myth or urban legend or reality, I don't know, of Spring Heel Jack, which always fascinated me. I've read several books about it. And I thought, I just like the idea that there really is just a mischievous alien that gets his kicks going from planet to planet and scaring people. And occasionally wrestles too in his spare time.
That's how he relaxes. He goes wrestles.
Right. So I like the character, so I wanted to bring him back.
Well, this first thing you sent was when you're working with Daryl, do you just say like, okay, we're going to bring this character back. Here's the kind of pose, and then he sends you something like this with some choices?
It's not necessarily a character that's coming back. It could be a new one. We do often start with poses, yeah. Especially if it's a pose like his, where it's a whole body shot of doing something. Not necessarily if it's a waist up, so we don't do it then. But sometimes we do this, and I've only kept it because I know we do this interview. I thought, you know what? I better keep a separate folder of all this stuff so that I don't have to search for it next time. And that made it a lot easier. And I'm going to keep doing that in the future.
Well, I mean, I'm speaking personally for myself, I love this, but I know the fans do as well to see the process.
Mm. I didn't want the horns. I didn't want the overdoing the devil part of it. It wasn't the image that I had of this person or character.
This is a fun little drawing, though.
Yeah.
Classic villain.
Yeah, right.
And then
Oh,
here's
yeah,
an alternate color you sent as well. Yeah.
right. And I didn't want that. Yeah.
Because the
Um,
devil thing again, is that it
well,
too
no,
devilly?
well, yeah, but not just that, but because that's not the way Spring Heel Jack was seen by people. If you're trying to kind of stick to some degree to that legend, I wanted to stick more to that. And I didn't really want that connotation. It doesn't have, while this person has characteristics that are devil-like, um, he's just an alien that doesn't know anything about our conceptions of the devil. He's just doing what he does, and that's why.
Yeah. Well, we mentioned him before, but up next is Showstopper, Tank's former partner. So yeah, this was a definite change from what it was before. And can you talk a little bit about how this came to be?
I really did love the way this one turned out because you want characters that are loud. You want characters you can work with. And this guy's got it all. And Daryl gave him a great expression. Um, I mean, it's to me, Climber can't is black and white in this guy's color as far as vanilla versus. I just like this character a lot more than I liked Climber. That's me personally, and what a perfect team up with him and Mister Everything. It's just a natural. So they're my tag champs, which is great because that's good for storylines with these guys on top. And there again, we're not talking about A-list guys, especially in singles, and yet their matches mean something. Like
Yeah.
Vanity used to back in the old days, and people like that, where certain people are just interesting automatically. And I'm hoping he's in that category. Now and the whole trapeze thing came to me. I don't remember why. You just look at things and you go, "Whoa, this would be an interesting character coming down in such a way. It'd be very dramatic." You know how in wrestling that was always a huge deal with Sting or anybody that they're coming down from rafters. That's this huge thing.
Yeah.
So let's do it with this guy, and then he'll do all these acrobatics and be a showstopper. That's the whole point of this guy. So
Well, yeah. It was interesting because in my Fed, FDF Tradition just got the belts right at the end of 2138. So then when 2139 starts, they have these two different cards. And I actually just said to myself, I'm going to use these new cards as a team, and I'll just go until they lose the titles. And then we'll see what happens after that. And so when they eventually did, I kind of had him like, Tank doesn't necessarily understand. Freedom Fighter doesn't understand what this is. Like he's a little bit like, listen, but you've been a good partner for so long. I don't get this, so we'll part ways. And so they're not. I don't have them feuding, but that's always kind of down the line. Like that could happen down the line. They just kind of like, okay, we'll go our own way, but I got my eye on you. I don't.
that's interesting. So you had them coexisting with his new image then for
Yeah,
a while.
I will say that it was only like 2 or 3 matches before they lost the belt. It wasn't like they had a long run. And I kind of had it a little bit of like frustration of like Freedom Fighter was like, I don't hate you for this, but I don't understand it. And so it's very confusing to me. So I'm just going to go away.
You didn't want to use the opportunity of them losing the belts for one to blame the other and say this was all your fault.
No, I did not right away. No, I wanted to. Right, okay. I wanted to like push that feud down. Just play with it, see what happens.
Yeah, good.
And we have some alternate art here. And what I love about this one is sort of I don't know if what theirs are, but they almost look like musical clefs on his, like where the little design comes up under, on his stomach. And I was wondering if that was part of the original design, like he was sort of somehow music related, or is that just Daryl drew that in?
Not coming from me. You'd have to ask that to Daryl.
I see.
But this guy wasn't adorned enough. I thought this guy's over the top. We need frills. We need more.
Yeah, he's certainly glammed up a little bit in his
Yeah, that's a
final
good way
form.
to put
Yeah,
it. Yeah. No,
yeah.
and I like the colors too, and that's Tom Rickard. I, I just like the way this came off, and I use the character quite a bit.
Well, this is the
And
one I'm so excited to talk about. Because this is actually, he's one of my favorite characters. And I just love this big, tough guy that just wants to steamroll everybody. But you sent some art here. And I think people, like when I first saw this art, I was like, wow, this is so different from what it wound up being. So let's just show it. This is the first version. So can you talk a little bit about the evolution from this to what we saw, in the final Quagmire form?
yeah, the original idea was to create some C mutations, C human, to go along with Tempest. And I think the first thoughts were a whale or a shark. And I just wasn't really wild about this approach. It's personal choice. I just preferred that we moved on from
Yeah.
this. Oh yeah, see, I think this is more comical than usable. So that's the reason I just thought, no, no, no. Thank you for trying, but I don't really care for the way it's coming off.
This would be a great tag team partner for Plethador. They would be a good
Yeah.
a good tag team. Now, I did want to say, I did notice and that the file name for this is Charadon, if I'm saying that correctly. So was his
Yeah.
name originally that instead of Quagmire?
Yeah. And I actually don't mind the name at all. I kind of like it, but I believe that it, and I'd have to go look it all up again, but I believe that it reflected, though, the type of sea animal it was, Charodon. And since that it had to do with a whale or a shark or something. And as soon as then I decided to just get off of this direction and go with a swamp type creature instead, the Charodon no longer fit the character.
Well, this was my favorite. The art you said. This was just to me, it's so different from what we wound up with that it's just a lot of fun to see that process.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I was very excited this year that in Promoter Prime, in Champions Promoter Prime, there were sort of main timeline Champions of the Galaxy cards. And so I'm super excited because it had been a while since we had those in Promoter Prime. And I don't know. I think they're really great. So I would love to talk about these. And the first one is the Castellix Amphitheater.
Yeah, and you've been involved in this too with creating cards for locations. And with it just seemed to fit that with the emphasis on Castellix that we do produce a card for that. That's all I can really say about it. It just seemed to be something that fit what we were doing.
Yeah, well, I love this art because I just love like sort of like it's almost like you're looking at a slice of daily life,
Yeah.
on Castellix, and I also found it interesting that the gladiator sort of emblem was on the amphitheater. Is that sort of like when the gladiators took over, they
Right.
just slapped their emblem on
Right.
everything?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This is ours
And
now.
those things, even that's something that if anything slips by, I'm sure it does, but we sure try hard not to let it happen. When Tom was drawing this, I was very clear with him about, how this place looks, that it's an outdoor place, because even this went through a drawing or two. I didn't send any of those, but even this does until we get it to be consistent with what we think it should look.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of fun to that, and we got and I'm probably going to say this wrong, but this is how I say it: the Deimos card at
Yeah, I say Demos.
Deimos, yeah, at Galacticon too. So it's fun to have a couple of these. Do you
Yeah,
use these arena cards when you play?
not as much. No,
Yeah.
I tend to just that's not one of the ones I use a lot. Occasionally, if it's like a major card.
Well, and then of course we had sort of the return to the ring sort of Lord Nexus, and
Yeah,
what I
my
love.
feeling. Oh,
Oh, go
go
ahead.
on.
No, please.
Well, my feeling was if you're bringing back Kraken, you got to have an opportunity for at least them to step in the ring together again. And you know that Nexus is going to keep himself in great shape. And yeah, he's humanoid, but this is 100 years in the future. So they're even talking about now somehow making it so we can live forever. So, obviously in 100 years, they're going to be better at people staying in decent shape as they age. He's one of them. No, he's not a star anymore. He's not even close. But what I did, and I had a blast doing it, was tag Nexus and the Perfect Specimen versus Kraken and Burning Man. Well, anything can happen in that kind of match. And you don't have to leave Nexus in a long time, but at least he's in there with Kraken a little bit. I even wound up doing them one-on-one just because I thought, I even built up to that. And technically, that's not even close to a main event match, but when you look at the cards, but it is, in the eyes of any fan, a huge match. And I think Kraken won that easily. But I had Nexus pick up a couple wins, maybe over the Aethran Soldier or Murtak, So it was kind of fun to get him back into action a little bit. I enjoyed that.
And we have some alternate art here. Yeah.
I wanted more of an action-looking shot, and for some reason, that didn't look enough like Nexus to me.
Well, I really loved, like as you said, is he's not coming back as a star. And to me, it almost makes him like seeing how sort of strong Kraken came back as, and Lord Nexus is going to go up to him. He almost makes Lord Nexus a little sympathetic because you're like, oh, buddy, you're not going to do well against, even though he's not at his prime, but
I agree.
Yeah.
So whenever I'd have those tag matches where the Perfect Specimen and Lord Nexus beat Kraken and Burning Man, which is possible because Spec can do it, that's sort of like evening the feud a little bit, even though Nexus isn't a key guy. It's a way to bring him into it. It's all booking. It's booking, and it's booking with things you can't control. They used to do those matches in the old days, right? Magnificent Morocco and somebody versus Bob Backlund and his manager. Forgot his name.
Arnold Skolland, is that?
Yeah. And Arnold Skolland was way past his prime, but he'd come in and make some moves and Morocco would be all upset. He didn't pin Morocco, though, but he had a chance to be in the ring, and that's the kind of thing I was going for there.
Yeah, when I first really got into wrestling, Bruno Sammartino would step into the ring every once in a while, in a tag match against Randy Savage and Adrian Adonis or something with, some partner. So, and those matches still happen today. I mean, you still see people coming, Steve Austin, a WrestleMania or two ago, came out and wrestled a match, so fun to see that. Yeah. Well, and here is Mr. Everything's harem, which all the beautiful women that he is. Was this something you just thought would be kind of a fun little card to do?
Yeah, I mean, the story is that he comes into the ring with somebody different all the time. Well, we never depicted that, so why not depict it and let that? And then, of course, the distractor ratings will vary depending upon the person. It's just another option for people to have on a playing card.
Yeah, it's a super fun card. I would be remiss in asking if maybe we could get any hints about the GWF Promoter Prime cards that might be coming out in December.
Okay, so now we are done with 2139?
I think we have reached the end, yes.
Okay. All right, because I'm knee deep in that. That's all I've been thinking about lately is early classics, legends, indies release, that I'm just. So anyway, go on. What was your question?
Well, I was just wondering if there was, I know we have 3 cards coming for sort of the main GWF timeline. And I was just wondering, we don't need details, but as are they going to be updates? Are there going to be new characters? Are there going to be different kinds of cards like the harem card? Or if there was just any tidbits, and if you can't, then that's fine.
No, that's okay. I'm just trying to think of how to classify them. I think they're more the latter of what you said. It's things that fill in gaps and holes.
Like flavor cards.
I guess is that what that's called?
I don't know. That's just what I called it. I don't know.
I'm trying to think of the third one. Uh, but right, they're not people you're going to bring in and say, "Oh boy, this person's going to blow past everybody." It's not that type of thing at all. It's filling in just the kind of cards you were just looking at, that I think helped to round. It will give. It'll. I don't know why I can't remember the third one, because that one is not something we're editing right now. We're editing some different stuff, so I haven't seen it in a little while. So my mind has been on the stuff I've been, early classics got a lot of cards. What we got 20 cards and then three more on top of that. That's a really major release for Champions of the Galaxy. This set, a lot of work is going into it. So with all of them, but particularly that with me and Champions. So, but I would say the latter for what you seem to be asking about.
Excellent. Okay. Well, fans are very excited to see those cards, and I always love.
Yeah, I think two of them are going to be able to wrestle for sure. Trying to, I just can't remember the last card right now.
Oh, that's fine. Well, that's more than we had when we started this, so it's very
Yeah.
exciting to know. I did want to ask you. I mean, we're talking a little bit about 2139 and just your Fed. You posted your Fed results on the boards, and I'll put a link to anybody who doesn't. I don't know why anybody would not be reading them, but I'll post a link when this video goes up so people can go right to it and read it. And you hit early in your 2139. You hit 1,200 game cards that you have played. Was that a momentous occasion for you, or is that just like,
Yeah.
up? I'll just keep playing.
No, it is. It is. Whenever you hit those big round numbers, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even if my, let's say, Galactic Wars hits some round number 60, I always think of that as a little bit more special than 59. Like Galacticon coming up 30 this year.
Right.
Those are big. That's why we're going back to Jamestown.
Excellent. The other question I want to ask was, did any of these new 2139 characters surprise you in your Fed? Like, did you have any surprises from anyone?
Mm. Now, since I stopped playing that about 3 weeks ago or something like that, I'm not like in the prime of thinking about my Fed anymore. So, nothing jumps. I'm surprised that I'm not shocked, but surprised that Kraken did win the interplanetary belt. I'm interested in where that's going to go, and I'm excited to start a new year with that story. Um, so I can't think of anything um, off the top of my head.
Well, the one last thing I want to ask you about your Fed is, as I was reading through your results here today, I noticed that you have time limit draws. And promoters always love to know different ways people calculate time limit draws or things like that. So I would love to ask you, how do you calculate your time limit draw? Is it a set number of moves, or is it just like, this match is going on a little longer?
Well, okay, yeah. It starts for one of two reasons. One, it's going on too long, and I don't think it's very interesting, and it's just going on and on. And and then the other one is sometimes I think a time limit draw could lead to a rematch, and so I sometimes think, you know what, maybe this is up, but I do put a limit on it. I don't just say, okay, it's over. I say, okay, 10 more moves. And sometimes, as you know, something really interesting can happen in that time span. So I'll go with the flow of that too a little bit. How about you? What do you do with that?
Yeah, I don't really, I never really use them. I mean, every once in a while I would do like the same kind of thing where I was like, boy, this is really going on a long time. But I don't, I may start using what you do because I don't have a lot of time limit draws in the thing. But I also like, there's a lot of promoters who will maybe they roll twice for disqualification so that there's less disqualifications. And I'm somebody who only rolls once. And if there's a disqualification, that
Me
leads to a
too.
rematch. So sometimes if I have a card that has a lot of DQs on it, I might say like, oh, this was a time limit instead of a DQ
Oh,
to
oh,
kind of
that's
force the
interesting.
rematch. Because I don't want to
Right.
post, I don't want, because it is possible to have a card of 10 matches where they all end in DQ. That's just the way
That could
the
happen.
dice
Yeah.
could roll, unless you have special stipulations. So, but that's I don't use a lot of them. Time
Well,
limit
and
cards.
it's a booking strategy. That's why I say if a match is going on, and it's actually better for the booking to have it end perhaps in a time limit because now suddenly it's a lot more interesting. Now you get the rematch, and it's probably not going to be like that again, or even a stipulation match. So I like to do that occasionally because I think you can build on it. It's like
Excellent.
it seems like you do too.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I love, yeah, if something ends in a DQ or a count out or whatever, I love it because it's like, well, that
Me
just
too.
pushes the storyline down the road, you
Yep.
know?
Yep.
You mentioned early classics, and we have the big early classic set that's coming out. It's available for pre-order right now, and will be shipping in December. Back when the original classics sets came out, like 2074 and 2079, and even the original early classics, did you go back and play those early sort of moments of your Fed?
No, I'd only put those characters in if I was doing something outside of my own fed, like a tournament or something like that. That's one of many things I would like to do if I had nothing but tons of free time, is do something like that. But I take this one very seriously because there's a lot of thought that must go into the power level of the cards and the kinds of rules that you're using because as we know the game continued to evolve over the years, new things were added, uh, mechanics,
Right.
and so you want to be consistent, you want the whole thing to make sense, um, and there's no perfect way to do that. There's just no perfect, but a lot of thought was put into how we present this. But here's the most important part: it's really good stuff. I mean, there's really a lot of people already know a lot of the characters, but they're well portrayed. Daryl's done a great job. Tom Rickards done a great job. Mike has done a great job pulling all this writing. Uh, I think people are going to love it. And 23 game cards. We've done a lot here. We've done a lot with this, and it's going to become, I hope, a very important part of our history.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because the over the past couple of years you've been doing these reimagined sets, where you've recolored the original starting things, and they're great sets and they're great cards, but I've never personally picked them up because I was like, well, I have those in black and white, and that's how I played them. And we talk about time and having, if you had all the time in the world, you could go back and play. But I definitely I pre-ordered this because the artwork has been amazing, and I had started playing early classics with the original black and white set, and I think I got 3 or 4 years into it. I go, but this might be fun to go back and kind of restart with the color cards and this new artwork. So it's very exciting, and people are very excited about it.
I'm really glad to hear it, and I think that they will enjoy it quite a bit, because there's a little bit about the same, like with Origins, a little bit about the previous history that is newly revealed, and and I like I said, we're really working hard on it just as we speak here right now. Our goal, as always, is to get things out as early as we can. But more important than that, and I put this up on the message board recently, it really needs to feel done now. You really want it to be exactly where you want it. So we're pulling that together, and I hope everybody will enjoy it when they get it. Same with
Is
all the rest of the stuff too.
is there an early classics character that you're very excited about after
Mm,
looking over
mm.
all of them in the past couple months?
Um, I there's so many that I can't wait for people. You know what? Maybe we'll do something like this with Mike too in the future,
Sure,
and talk about the characters and everything once they're out. Um, so I don't want to really say at this time, but there
that's
are
fine.
several that I am, and a lot of them are return characters. Some of them are new. So I'll just leave that for now.
Excellent. Well, let's before we wrap up here. I would love to ask you about your Legends Fed because you are playing a Legends Fed now with other people, right? Can you talk a little bit about that Fed? And I'll put a link to that so people can go read those results as well.
Yeah, that's two of my longtime friends. The fact of the matter is, we played a Champions Fed back in the 70s before I left Cleveland. These are two close friends of mine. They're not wrestling fans the way most of us are, but they're getting more and more into it because we each have our stables
Mm-hmm.
in our Fed, and there's sort of a little bit of a competitive thing going there then too. And so they're like, uh, I need somebody else. This guy's not doing good. And they'll read up on the guys. And so they're really getting into the history too. And we're really developing some of the storylines. Um, so I'm having a blast playing with this Legends Fed.
Excellent. Well, I have a few questions that people sent in when they knew that I was going to be interviewing you, and I would love to ask you a few of these. Neil asks, will there possibly be a new lady or two in 2140? Or have you not even thought of that yet?
Oh, definitely yes.
Okay, there you go. We don't need any more. Um, Bucky749 asks, do you ever put any of your favorite Legends characters against Champions of the Galaxy characters?
No.
You did never, just to see what would happen if, I don't know, Andre the Giant took on Chaos. No.
No, I'm not done that.
And
Sorry, these are very easy answers,
no,
actually.
no, no, it's great. This one will probably get you, maybe get a little bit more. Brock Riblet asks, to what extent, if any, has living in Sedona changed your creative process? This can be related to the game itself or to writing and thinking in general.
Wow, that's an interesting question. I don't know if it has, but I'll tell you, every year when I'm really writing the next new set, I need to get away. I don't know why. I've got enough quiet here, and I love Sedona, by the way. I think it's a really nice place to live. But I just I need to get away, and I'll often go to Laguna Beach where I've got some relatives, and they're really nice to me. They say, you can stay. We got a place outside where you got your own room and everything, so you got privacy. And I'm like, Kalo Caton, or what was his name? The
Yeah,
groomer
Kato
from the O.J.
Kalin. Yeah,
Simpson
yeah.
has his own place outside.
If
So
you ever
anyway,
hear thumping against the wall, do not go outside.
right. So anyway, so it's really nice because I like to have at least 2 weeks or a month where I'm just totally detached, where those ideas can sort of flow through me unhindered. This year, I'll probably do it. I'm fortunate enough to have the opportunity to go to Honolulu. So and I got a place to stay there. So I'll probably do that. That'll be nice. I've never been there before, but a lot of my time there will be writing. And so anyway, that doesn't have to do directly with Sedona. It has to do with my process, where when I'm clearing my mind, I really need to be away. And I'll tell you real quick. For me, the game kind of had a restart in my mind, a reboot in 2127 with the first Black Death. I don't know why, but and maybe it shows. 25, 26. I don't think there was much happening then, not in my mind anyway. I don't know. The Black Death idea just opened up a whole new vistas to me of metaverses. Right around the same time that it was part of the Marvel Universe movies, too. It seemed to be a concept that was in the air. And I just want to mention that that to me is was a new beginning in my mind.
Yeah. Well, as always, we, as promoters, thank you for creating this great game that we've all come, kind of rallied around. I just 2 weeks ago was in Iowa for River Rumble with Chad Olson and a bunch of other promoters, and the kind of feeling was we played, of course, we played out tournaments, but just sitting around and talking about what's happening in our feds and having discussions like you and I have with these discussions is some of the most fun parts of the game. So thank you so much for creating that. And thank you for wanting to come on this again and have our annual discussion.
It's been my pleasure. Thanks a lot for everything. Appreciate it.
The Solo Promoter Podcast is a production of Saturday Morning Media. Grandpa Choco, executive producer. A big shout out to all the members of the Golden Circle. The Golden Circle channel members help make this podcast and the other great content at solopromoter.com possible. To find out more, visit solopromoter.com and click the join button. Thank you so much for listening. We will talk to you soon. This podcast is copyright 2024 Saturday Morning Media. Grandpa Choco, executive producer. www.solopromoter.com.